I'm Valerie Abrahamian with Advocates for Angels, and today we have Chris, who is a parent of a son on an IEP, Dylan, and Dylan's on the autism spectrum. And Chris and I have been working together. I think we're in our third year of working together.
We started in 8th grade and he's finishing his junior year, so
Yeah, maybe going
about
on
4.
Yeah. So it's been a while. Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Right. When you're at meetings.
In IEP meetings. We are going to talk to Chris today about her experience and her journey in learning how to become a parent advocate for her son Dylan, and all the progress that we've made since she hired me. So Chris, tell us a little bit about your aha moment that you had before you hired me, and kind of spurred you on to realize, hey, I need some help here. I don't know how to get past this problem I'm having with my IEP team.
Sure. And I love that you call it the aha moment, because that is exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. You just think, aha, I need help. And what happened with me is I think I went along like a lot of parents, feeling that the team, the educators and the therapists that were involved, were really, really there to help Dylan and to help him get through and succeed. And I trusted them.
Yeah.
And we did pretty well through elementary school, except for a little hiccup during his 4th grade year.
Yeah.
And things went on, and then we went to middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And once he started middle school, it was almost as if his case carrier had decided the first week he met Dylan that this kid was never going to graduate from high school. And he basically told me that. And I just said, you don't know him, you're wrong, you're not teaching him right. He's only been in middle school for a week. And he said, but we have to get him ready for high school. And I said, no, let's just get him through the first semester of 7th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and let's do that successfully. So I was already kind of in middle school put on the defensive from the get-go, and I wasn't used to that. Then we got through the middle of 7th grade, and a couple things happened. And I fought for a little bit of assistance, and I've been very fortunate in that there are educators and therapists out there that are willing to put their neck out on the line for you, and that doesn't always happen. And I had in 7th grade, I finally fought for what I thought was going to be what they call a SKIA, which is a special circumstances instructional aid. Now, I'd never heard this term before. Nobody mentioned it, but they kept saying he needs to have help staying on task in the classroom. He doesn't stay on task in the classroom, and the teacher's having to constantly redirect him.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I said, well, what can't we just get him someone in the classroom to help? And the case carrier said, well, that's a SKIA, and that takes a lot of extra paperwork. I'll have to start filling it out. We won't be able to get him that until 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. Let's start 8th grade off and running. He'll have these.
Let me just interject. It doesn't take that long. An assessment takes 60 days. So when a parent asks for at that time you asked for a SKIA. So what should have happened was, in 15 days, they should have had you sign the assessment plan for the SKIA assessment. And then you sign the assessment plan, and then 60 days after that, you reconvene, and they show you the findings from that plan and decide whether they're going to provide you with an aid or not provide you with an aid. So the longest that you take is 75 days, unless there's a vacation in there or school is off track.
And this was summer, kind of came in there. Okay. So I thought, okay.
But that's how long it should have taken. And it took a lot longer than that.
Exactly. It took a lot longer than that. So we started 8th grade, and he's always had pretty good speech therapy services that I think you were shocked that I was actually able to get those. And that was based on the fact that a young a young, very conscientious teacher,
Yeah.
really, really put his neck on the line. And I think he got in trouble for me
Mhm.
getting that speech therapy. But that was one of the services I've had a lot of luck with.
Mhm.
So I'm having him at his after school speech services, and
Mhm.
then I had his annual IEP, which, as you know, is always in February
Mhm.
if it's scheduled in time.
Uh-huh.
And so we were there, and I said, well, and then there's an inclusion specialist that I had asked to be included.
Mhm.
A really wonderful person, and I insisted that she be there for this one meeting in 8th grade because they were making a transitional to high school now meeting.
Mhm.
And she sat by me and she said, there was something that came up, and I apologize for not remembering specifically what the question was. She said she wrote on a notepad ABA, which I think you might want to explain if parents don't already know that. That's an
Mhm.
autism behavioral program.
Mhm.
And I said,
Applied behavior
yeah,
analysis.
right. And I just said, well, he's supposed to have the in-class assistants, because they once again kept saying he doesn't stay on task. He doesn't stay on task.
Mhm. And why hadn't you had your SKIA assessment done yet if you're having your transition to high school now and you asked
Mhm.
for it at the end of 7th grade?
Correct. And I thought it had been done. And this is, I think, one of the biggest things parents can learn from my mistakes is I trusted them to do that.
Mhm.
I trusted them to follow through.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, of course he's got his SKIA. He said he was filling out all this paperwork. And then he said, well, that's a SKIA. That takes a lot of paperwork and a lot of assessment to
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
And I said, right, how would I know what a SKIA is? I've never heard
Right.
that term before. You're the one who told me about it. He goes,
Right.
oh, no, no. Well,
Yeah.
I had my phone on me, and I had texts between this case carrier and I
Mhm.
pulled it up, and it was from, if you can believe this, a year before the previous
Yeah.
IEP. And
Yeah.
I held it up to him and I said,
Mhm.
this was you last year.
Yes. And
And
so
he
what they
turned white as
failed
a ghost.
to do was they didn't explain to you the
Hmm.
process so you could hold
Right,
them accountable by saying, okay, Mrs. I'm not going to say your last name. Okay, Chris, you're going to, you're asking for a SKIA. So now within 15 days, we're going to get you an assessment plan to assess for the SKIA. And then after you sign that, within 60 days, we're going to have an IEP meeting and we're going to look over the assessment findings and make a decision on
hmm,
whether Dylan needs an aid or not. So because you weren't aware of the
right.
assessment process and the timelines, you
I just
waited a
thought they
year.
applied for it and it was
You just
placed in
thought,
there.
oh, I got it, and you thought it was there, and a year later you come to find out, no, they never did it. They never did the assessment, and nothing ever happened after that IEP meeting, which
Right.
is a violation of IDEA. There's about 3 violations in there, actually, of what
Yeah.
happened. So I won't go over all that because I teach on the timelines, but there's 3
So, yeah,
violations right there. So what was your, when did you get to your aha moment of
that
when you
was that
realized?
was the first half. That was the first ah. Because I'll never forget showing this man my phone and saying, this is a text, this is a text thread between you and I.
Mhm.
And this gentleman turned white as a ghost, realizing he completely messed up.
Mhm.
And he was accountable, and I had documentation of it.
Mhm.
Well, I went very frustrated to his speech and kind of cried on the speech pathologist's shoulder. And she was just a very, very wonderful person. And she ended up saying, I need to leave the room. I need to get some water. Oh, look what's on my laptop. And she left the room, and there was the webpage for Advocates for Angels and your picture.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, I had never thought um, about getting. Sorry, my son is showing me something. It's all right. I had never thought about getting an advocate before, because I thought, and you mentioned this, so I might be doing this out of
That's okay.
context, but I had never thought that I needed one. I thought I'm an intelligent person. Heck, I got 2 doctorates. I'm a physical therapist. Now, I don't work with pediatrics, but I'm thinking I'm an intelligent, educated woman. These people know that, and I'm also somebody who felt that I was being very respectful of these other therapists and educators, because I am both of those things.
Uh-huh.
And I was very trusting.
Uh-huh.
And here this wonderful person put that up, and I knew
Uh-huh.
that was my ha. So my
Uh-huh.
ah was that IEP meeting where I realized I'd been shafted,
Mm-hmm.
and my ha was somebody saying, "You need some help, kid."
Yeah.
And that's the day I called you,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and that's when everything started to get better.
Yeah. So what would you say to about uh did you feel that you weren't being respectful by hiring an advocate? Did you feel uncomfortable because you're an educator as well, a
Right.
professor, and that you were kind of maybe in some way um, disrespecting your peers in some way, or how did you deal with that?
Um, well, it's that also has been very eye-opening, because it was very interesting, because that year before I had brought actually my one of my bosses. I am a university professor,
Mm-hmm.
and the associate dean of my program is a specialist in autism, who
Uh-huh.
just has been very supportive of me and just adores Stillen.
Uh-huh.
And I invited her to come along because I said, this was 7th grade. I said, I need a little help.
Uh-huh.
Well, when I showed up with her, I noticed everybody changed because they thought I'd brought an advocate.
Mhm.
And everybody completely changed their attitude, thinking I said, no, this is a family friend. She's actually my boss. She just came along to support me.
Mhm.
And everybody kind of got strange.
Mhm.
And I went, is that what happens when you actually get some help? Then,
Mhm.
then I hired you, and I come in with the Valerie Abrahamian. And for anybody who's not a part of the Corona Norco Unified School District, Valerie is a force to be reckoned with in this school district. And you go to a meeting with her, and everybody kind of, they change their posture and everything,
Mhm.
because they know she knows what she's doing, and
Mhm.
they're not going to be able to push this parent around anymore, because
Mhm.
she's going to peel the layers off this onion that is this kid's IEP, and
Mhm.
get to the bottom of things to make sure he gets the services, because they don't tell us.
Yes.
It's almost like they're
Right.
not allowed to. And the
Yeah.
fact that that poor speech pathologist had to do that so sneakily,
Uh-huh.
instead of just saying, Chris, you need to hire an advocate, you need some help, you're really not getting this stuff done, and this kid has so much more potential, and they're
Uh-huh.
just not helping you need to get some help.
Right. Right.
And when I finally got you, she was so funny. She said, it was painful. It was like leaving breadcrumbs out for somebody. It took me so long. She said, it was everything I could do. It's almost like I had to shake you.
Uh-huh.
And so, how was it? When I guess I realized, just because I brought Dee, my associate dean, with me,
Uh-huh.
and I saw everybody's attitude change,
Right.
I was kind of thinking, okay, what's going to happen now? Are they going to think that I don't trust them anymore? Are they going to?
Mhm.
But the other part of me was going, you're not doing your job,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I'm not seeing what you're doing wrong, and I need help.
Yes.
So I got to the point where I didn't care.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, things really changed toward me as a parent.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was trying to start a club, and they wouldn't. You have to have a faculty member be your sponsor at school. I wanted a club for autistic kids. That took on a whole different.
Mhm.
That's Annex Club. That
Mhm.
took on a whole different. It went a totally different direction, because no one would help me. And I
Yeah.
joke around that I had a scarlet letter on my sleeve now. It was
Mhm.
an A, and it was
Mhm.
for advocate.
Mhm.
It meant that and there's that. Thank you, Blake.
But do you really think that they would have helped you had you not had an advocate?
Only if I knew what a lot of the things I know now, because I didn't know to ask for
Right,
these things. So I think that any
right.
parent
But
with
I
the
mean, with your annex club, do you think they would have
oh, I think they would have. I think they
really?
would have. I think they would have been more willing to help me with the club, to at
Mm,
least be the faculty, knowing that I would do all the work.
uh-huh,
But all of a sudden, nobody wanted anything to do with me. They did not want to help me,
uh-huh.
and I don't know. I can't say. It's a
Because
good question.
well, we don't know because it didn't happen, but
Yeah.
I don't think so. Because if it doesn't come from them and
Hmm.
they're not heading it up, if that is the origin isn't from them,
Hmm.
they typically don't, they're not
Yeah.
interested.
So
Because
I don't know. I think they would have. Might have said no, but it wouldn't have felt kind of like people just not wanting to even respond to me with a no. They
yeah,
just didn't respond.
right. But don't you feel that they respect you now much more so than they did before?
Yes, absolutely.
So in that way, because they know now that, oh, Chris has learned now what her parent
Hmm.
rights are. Chris knows now what's supposed to happen. We
Hmm.
can't take advantage of her anymore. And
Hmm.
because even if we don't tell her, Valerie's going to.
Right.
So, the respect, I think it works the opposite way of when parents feel like I'm kind of nervous about hiring an advocate because I don't
Hmm.
want them not to like me. Maybe they'll retaliate against my child and I won't know. For kids who are nonverbal, a lot of parents are afraid of that.
Hmm.
They want to be liked. They want to be accepted, and then they're not going to like you anymore. But it really works the opposite.
Yeah.
In the beginning they might be a little tiffed about it and like, why did you do that, and feel offended. But then they soon get over it, because especially if you're working with the kind of an advocate, which I am, which I come in to build the team. I'm
Right.
not there to cause more separation or division. I'm there to build the team and to teach the parent how to become an equal team participant,
Right.
because you weren't an equal team participant before.
No,
You
and you
were at
feel.
you were a trusting mom that did not have the information,
Hmm.
and that they were taking advantage of you. That wasn't an equal IEP team
No,
participant.
and then
And
being
you
in an
might have said
IEP.
something, you might have said something or given an opinion, and they would go, oh, isn't that nice, Chris? And then they just move on and do what they wanted
Right.
to do. It's the show. It's the, oh, we're being nice to you and we respect you. And yeah, oh yeah, mom, you're a part of the team. But then they go on their merry
Right.
way and with their agenda that they predetermined prior to the meeting. That's what's happening with
Yeah.
parents that don't know their rights or don't have an advocate to help them or don't take a class to learn their rights, because
And
that's the true
so true.
picture of the
And
bottom line.
being in an IEP is very. You're supposed to be a part of this team, but you're outnumbered. I felt kind of like it was me, maybe my husband if he could make it, and I'm very fortunate in that my husband and I are a team,
Yeah.
and I'm really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great dad and a great husband, and but I felt kind of like it was me and all these other people, and I was totally outnumbered. I did not feel like those were people supporting me. I did
Yeah.
when he was smaller,
Right.
but the older he got, the more I felt outnumbered and almost pressured.
Yeah. Yeah, it really changes in junior high and high school, because that's when, okay, now you gotta earn the credits.
Mhm.
So then you can't just slide them through, they pass that grade and pass that grade. If they didn't really pass it, they still pass them through anyway, right? Then
Right.
they don't want parents to be, what? What do you mean they didn't pass ninth grade? What do you mean they have to go on the non-diploma track?
Mhm.
And then parents freak out. So that's why they tried to take you off that track early, because they were
Mhm.
trying to prepare you that, look, you know, we've been passing him through, and you haven't really realized it or known it. So just get ready, because this is what's going to happen. And
Mhm.
that's typically when parents have their aha, like, what's happening, what's
Yeah.
going on, and then they go find out. because that is typically what happens to
Yeah.
to kids in special ed, unless the parents know how to make sure progress is being made, how to hold them accountable to evidence. Show me the evidence that they learned a whole year of language arts. Show me the evidence they showed me a whole year of math. Because then you don't really know, oh, my kid's 4 years behind in math. I didn't know that. They never told me. Then when you get to ninth grade, all of a sudden, your kid's 4 years behind in math. Well, that's not what they told me in junior high or grade school.
Right.
And this is the problem with the system, with the
Yeah.
special education system. And if parents don't know, then that's what's happening. So that's the gravity of parents knowing their parent rights right from the get-go, in when they're as young as possible, because then every year the gap gets wider, the gap gets wider, the gap gets wider. And so
Can I say something? Because I told you, as I
sure.
thought of things, I think one of the skills you taught me,
Mm-hmm.
which is so vital for every parent to realize, is keeping all of your documents from previous years and organizing them.
Okay.
And I always thought I was really good about keeping documents, but they weren't cleanly organized. I wasn't going to meetings with all of last year's stuff to review it.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important skill that everybody should learn. And that is, keep those documents, keep them organized, go back with them. Even if you don't go back with everything back, all the way down to kindergarten when they're in, 10th grade.
Yeah, but the last 2 years, I always
Right.
keep the last 2 years to 3 years in my file when I come to a meeting.
Mm-hmm. And that was I think it's such a valuable skill, is to just
Absolutely.
really learn how to organize all those documents, so
Yes.
that when they see that you can look back on what
Yeah.
their goals were,
That's
on
how I hold
what,
them accountable.
yeah,
And
and
that's what I teach in the Ultimate IEP Parent Empowerment course. That's in the very first module is, okay, go buy your binder, and this is how you organize your file.
yeah.
Because that's the first step in learning to be a parent advocate, is that evidence is the written documents. It's the IEP goals, it's the assessments, and that's the evidence. That's the hard evidence of holding them accountable. And if you don't have that at your disposal in an IEP meeting to go, hey, wait a minute, didn't we work on that same goal last year? Let me check. And you look back at last year's, oh, look, it's the exact same goal. What happened? Why is he still working on that same goal? He made no progress in a whole year. And they'd be like, oh no, he made progress.
That's not what it says here.
But they didn't. That's 101, advocacy 101. So yes, that is an amazing skill for parents to do, and to just be familiar with the documents. So, to know this is what an assessment looks like. This is what an assessment plan looks like, and start reading those documents. Know the IEP. What are the different components of the IEP? Where are the goals in the IEP? Where are the services? Where are the present levels? Those kinds of things. And then you start talking their talk. And then they start going, hey, this parent knows something.
when showing up with my binder,
yeah,
I could just, like you said, things did change toward me as far as respect, because they see that I am prepared. I've got all the stuff from the last 2 years, just like you showed me. And I just, it's the other thing that you taught me is to go through, before you sign your new IEP, go through it line by line and make sure they updated it, because just because they say, here's your updated IEP, doesn't mean they did it correctly.
Oh yes, how many mistakes have we found? It
Oh
happens
my
all
gosh.
the time. And that's another thing. Parents just blindly trust and sign it. And a lot of stuff, great stuff might have happened in your meeting that you think is in there that isn't in there.
Right.
Or that's written improperly.
Right.
So yeah, no one's overseeing. We're the ones that oversee.
Yeah.
we're the the managers, the boss, the whatever you want to call it. But no one else is going to do it if we don't do it. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
That parents don't understand. So then we get to high school.
Yes.
And then we start, well, actually we started when you hired me in junior high, the assessment process.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the assessment process and how we finally got the IP that Dylan needed, and where he is today is because we did that long process. So talk a little bit about that process, Chris.
Well, because there were so many areas that I didn't understand he'd never had assessed.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never had audiology assessed. He'd never really had a true occupational therapy assessment.
Yep.
He'd had, and to me this was hilarious because I'm not an occupational therapist, but I'm a certified hand therapist. So boy, Dylan has the best writing in the universe, okay?
Yeah.
But the OTs that we were coming across didn't understand sensory integration type of things, and we needed to request that type of an assessment.
Right.
Now they have to kind of go through theirs first, and then we say, we want an outside one. Yeah. So that is a long process. It takes time. It takes at least a year, in my opinion. It took ninth grade to get him through all of these very important assessments, to circle back and talk about them in addendum IEPs.
Right.
So we did audiology, we did further speech, we did the occupational therapy. Was I all over Orange County, California.
Yeah.
Newport Beach is really pretty this time of year. And we finally got all of these assessments, and they were by the cream of the crop specialists that, by the way, parents, if you request it, the school district does it, they pay for it. I didn't pay for these assessments. The school district paid for the IEEs, and we
free and appropriate public education, FAPE, free appropriate public education. The district pays for everything. That's right.
And they did, and they could not argue. And the best thing about it is these therapists that finally did the appropriate assessment backed everything up with evidence.
That's right.
They had research to back up all of their findings, and everything was backed up, and it was just fantastic. So we finally started to get things in place. We finally got the right type. We talked about a SKIA. Yeah. What was happening is he was getting a one-on-one aid in the classroom, but a one-on-one aid does not necessarily know how to empower an autistic child in the classroom. So we fought for a private aide who really knew
ABA.
And they really know how to do their job, but then pull back. So Dylan slowly but surely has become more independent in the classroom. And more, when we first started this process, his homework would take me 4 hours a night. And it would be painful. And I would dread it. Now, he comes home, he runs upstairs to his actual desk. What a concept. And he does his homework without any prompting. Yes. And that was because we had the appropriate support in classroom that it carried over to our home. Yes. And that was a life changer.
Right.
I'm telling you.
And that's because ABA aides are behavioralists who actually know how to shape behavior and actually know how to do positive behavior interventions for kids on the spectrum, which look very different than behavior interventions that are kids that are not on the spectrum, say kids that have emotional disorders or kids that have like OCD or ADHD. There's different kinds of behavior interventions that are provided for different types of kids. And these are specific to behavior interventions, specific to kids on the spectrum. And it worked beautifully for Dylan, and he's just changed and completely. You wouldn't even. It's not the same kid as when I first met him. He's a completely different kiddo, and he's doing so amazing. He's progressed in every way, with his speech and language, his verbal and expressive. with his eye contact, with his just his demeanor, and his de-escalation of his anxiety,
Right.
his ability to be independent in class, his organizational skills,
Yes.
his initiation and task completion, socialization. He's not as a full anxiety. He's just so many things have improved for him. And talk about how amazing he's doing in math.
May I?
Yes.
So this is a kid that they said should be in life skills, should not be on diploma track. And that is definitely, I want to make sure parents know that life skills is a great way to go for the right kid.
Yes.
But for Dylan, I just felt that he should and would
and deserved
to get a diploma. Well, when he first started in math, it was what you said. He hadn't met the goals in middle school, so he started off so behind.
Yep.
Now, I just love he's in a more advanced math class, and he's basically, the teacher is so excited about his progress. He has 100% on everything. And his goals are, Dylan will solve 9 out of 10 quadratic formulas 100% of the time without prompting. And I'm thinking, what's a quadratic formula?
I don't know. Yeah, we saw his grades. He showed us the grade book at the last meeting, and everyone was 100%. My mouth dropped, my jaw dropped.
He even makes him his TA. He even helps him with corrections and everything.
Yes.
And this is a kid now. This is a kid that they said would never get a diploma, and he's got the highest score in the history of this teacher's recollection.
Yes, he said that in the meeting. He said Dylan is the highest student I've ever had.
Yeah.
And Chris and I just looked at each other. What?
And he even brought us something to say, I'm not embellishing anything. He's totally earned this. He said, I want to make sure you understand that this
and then he showed us the 100 list of grades.
And then he kind of showed us without giving any of the other kids' names, he showed us his class breakdown. Sure enough, I mean, there were some kids that were getting D's. It wasn't like he was doing anything special for Dylan. Dylan earned every one of those scores.
Yes. So he's very gifted in math.
Yes.
And we'll probably do something with math in his job experience and later job career.
Yeah, we think he's probably going to do well going into accounting.
Yeah.
Because he's got to have all his details. He's got to have his I's dotted and his T's crossed. So he's an accountant's dream.
Yes. So, and then what's really interesting is that both sides of his brain seem to be very gifted, which, and all of this came out in high school after he got what he needed, and his needs were really being met. And then he blossomed. And that would have never happened had his needs weren't met. That's the biggest thing I want parents to take away, is that if your kid isn't getting their needs met on their IEP and you have no clue what their needs are, or what to ask for, or how to get it, then your child's never going to reach their potential. And now Dylan is reaching his potential because his needs were met. And he went from a kiddo that was far behind in a lot of areas. He wasn't doing terrible, but he wasn't a kid that, he should go into the life skills class right away. He wasn't there either, but he was behind. Now he's a kid that is gifted, showing giftedness in right and left brain, because also in art, the art teacher came in and said, he's an amazing artist and his art looks like it should be put in, you say it, you're the mom.
She said his art looks like it should be put in a gallery. And she actually, and I'm so sad about this darn virus, because she entered his art in a district contest. And so she chose to enter it on his behalf because she was so excited about it. So he's not just amazing in math, he's amazing in art. That kid is using his entire brain. He's using both sides.
Yes.
And he's just thriving. And it was so cute to watch him come into a meeting, because they always have them come into the meetings, and usually he'd look terrified.
Yes.
Because here were all these people, his teachers, his therapists, and here are all these people, and oh gosh, mom's here too. And he'd be terrified, and you could see him shaking in his boots. His anxiety level went through. He walked in, and he was like, hey, it was like a typical
Yeah.
17-year-old boy. Hey,
And
everybody,
he
how you
looked
doing?
around the room, he looked around the table and made eye contact with every person to see who's here. And then he said hello to the people that he recognized.
Right. And that was like a different kid, and he's
Was.
just, and I have to, hats off to the math teacher who made him a
Yes.
TA. That was great for his self-esteem
Yes.
to be recognized in that capacity, instead of just being the kid that was always, well, we put him in the front row so I can keep a close eye on him, and
Right.
and I can redirect him. He doesn't need that anymore.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So just
But
amazing. Definitely a success story.
yeah,
Dylan is
but
one of my biggest success stories
it
for
was so
sure.
funny is the folks that were always trying to say life skills, no diploma. You're just thinking you're his mom and you think he's going to do more than he's going to do. All of those folks, all of a sudden at that last meeting when he came in with the great grades, were just like, we're such a good team. Look at all we did for him. He's doing amazing. And I just wanted to, I was like, yeah, thanks for all your help, because
If it was your way, my kid would be in life skills right
right,
now.
he'd be learning how to cross the street by himself, and
Yes, and read the
um,
bathroom signs.
right. And I just thought that was the funniest thing, how all of a sudden these people that had been so negative and so shut down did never told me about reading comprehension, never told me that was an assessment that could be done. I was just always told he doesn't do well with reading comprehension. They said, I know it's one of his biggest challenges. Nobody ever told me that there was an assessment that could be done and services that could be provided. And if the school district doesn't provide those services, that they got to find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever told me that. I just kept hearing that his reading comprehension is not there.
Right.
Nobody offered up to
Year
me.
after year, year
Yeah.
after year. Mm-hmm.
And
As he
so I
fell further and further behind in reading.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
and now that reading comprehension is,
Yeah.
it's fantastic because we got the services he needed.
Yes.
But I just thought it was ironic that this team that had been so treating me like I want, because I know that there are those parents that want the stars and the moon for their kid, and they're asking for too much,
Right.
things that aren't appropriate for them.
Right. Right.
And I get that, and I never wanted to
Yes.
be that. So sometimes it made me
Yes.
think, am I asking for too much? Do
Mm-hmm.
Am I seeing something in him that's not there? Am I
Mm-hmm.
believing in him, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a realist. I'm not being realistic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I
Second
get home
guess.
with him. I'm like, no, he can do this. He just
Yes.
needs the help.
Yes.
And I just thought that this whole team that was so unsupportive at first,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we're patting themselves on the back, like, look what we did.
Yeah, because now he's so successful and
Yeah,
he's like a rock star now in high
yeah,
school, and he's not looked at, oh, there's one of those autistic kids that are, fully
hmm
they're getting their diploma that really shouldn't be getting their diploma.
right,
It's not like
right,
that. It's like, no, he is earning that diploma
yeah.
big time and getting almost all A's, right? He
He's
has
got
all A's.
straight A's right now. Yeah,
Yeah, he has straight A's. Yeah, he's straight A's.
yeah.
So
So I mean, even in language arts, even in history, even in those more abstract courses that are generally really difficult for him, he's even excelling in those.
yes,
So
yes.
very excited. And senior year is just the cherry on top. He's just got those 2 required classes, and he gets to take a whole bunch of really neat,
Fun classes.
fun classes. And I
Yes.
think he's going to just really enjoy it, and again,
Mhm.
really thrive. Um,
Mhm.
so,
So now we're focusing on job training and job
yeah,
development
yeah,
for after high school,
right.
after he gets his diploma and leaves. And so what are some of the things that we figured out are Dylan's strengths and where we want to focus on for senior year, Chris? Do you want to talk about that? That'd be very good for
Sure.
parents to think about.
Yeah, so some of the things that he's really good at is and we didn't get this class, but it's something I can look into for him to start learning some online things, is
Mm-hmm.
computers. He's very, very good on computers.
Yes.
And the computer teacher that's a gen ed class of his,
Yes.
not a special ed. The computer teacher said he gets to these sites so fast. We don't even know how he got there, but he navigates through the internet so fast.
Uh-huh.
It's light speed faster than just the other kids
Uh-huh.
that aren't on an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
So I think computers is definitely something. I He's very interested in photography,
Mm-hmm.
especially anybody who knows Dylan knows his love of animals.
Yes.
So I had suggested, and I couldn't believe he remembered this. I had suggested over a year ago that maybe he do animal photography, because I thought he's so patient and quiet. He could be somebody that could park himself under some, camouflage stuff and just wait there,
Yeah.
very patiently for the creature to come by and take a picture of it, because he's also very artistic.
Yes.
Photography,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's going to be taking zoology,
Yeah.
which very exciting, very
Yes.
exciting for him because that's
Yes.
his main interest.
Oh, yeah.
He will be in the jobs class,
Yep.
so he is going to learn some things about jobs.
Okay.
He has so. The other thing that he is interested in that we're going to look into, besides, I said accounting because I think he's so good at math, and
Yes.
he's very precise and meticulous and patient.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that an accounting clerk would be a way to go. So we're going to look
Yep.
into that.
And you might do some apprenticeship
Right.
and possibly looking at that, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're looking into that. He's interested in the photography,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also always been very interested in sign language.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was smaller, 5, 6 years old, he and I took sign language uh, classes together,
Uh-huh.
because it helped him
Yeah.
be a little less anxious. And
Sure.
when he saw the sign, like mom,
Yes.
he stopped thinking about what his muscles of his mouth had to do, and I
Exactly.
just could just look at him and say, Dylan. He go, oh, mommy, may I have a cookie, please?
Yep. Yep.
And it helped him verbalize. So he was always so
Absolutely.
good at sign language that's the other thing, is looking into a sign language interpreter. So I have
Very cool.
all kinds of avenues that we can explore.
Yep.
So senior year is going to be a lot of where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And just a lot of different avenues, maybe more than one.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe he'll
Absolutely.
be a sign. Maybe he'll be an accounting clerk for the deaf community.
Yeah. Yes.
So he could help an accountant, a CPA,
Mm-hmm.
working with,
Yeah.
because
And
there's a
then
huge,
signing.
yeah, there's a huge deaf community here in the
Yes.
Riverside
There is.
area,
Yes.
and he could assist with something like that. There's just so many possibilities for him.
So many possibilities. And the huge thing is that he's ahead of his credits. And that's why he gets to
Yeah,
take all these fun classes, because he's
yeah,
done now
he's
with
pretty
his
much done.
requirements.
He only needs the two senior level classes that everybody has to take,
Yeah,
which is,
government and economy or something like that.
yeah, is like, it's
Government or government economy,
it's like
something
a
else.
history, government, and some kind of language arts or something.
Yeah, yeah,
He has to take those two. Everything else is just fun,
yeah, fun. So it's just amazing, just
right?
amazing. Yep. One of my success
I
stories.
know. And I
That's what.
just I can't thank you enough. And I can't wait to have the big party next year for
Yeah,
graduation.
we're
And
gonna have a big party,
we're gonna have a big party. And
and I'm gonna come.
you better come. You better bring Chanel.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I just want to, again, I'd already mentioned this, but I just think that it's really important that parents don't be embarrassed that
Mhm,
they didn't know this, or
mhm.
they didn't know it starting day one of kindergarten, or they didn't
Right.
even know it, like me. I didn't even know about this stuff till junior high, till middle
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
It's okay. And
It's okay.
I'm a very educated person,
Yeah,
but I didn't
yes,
know. So
yeah.
it's okay to ask for help. It really is
Mhm,
okay to reach out, and please advocate for your child.
mhm,
And the sooner the better.
mhm.
Don't feel
The
like
sooner the better.
it'll just get better. It'll just get better.
Right,
Jump
because it
on it.
won't.
Because if you wait, I think if I had waited even 6 months more, it would have been almost impossible.
Mhm,
But I just in the nick of time found Valerie,
right.
and we it took ninth grade was a tough year to get everything fixed.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Oh, yes, it
and
was. It
but
was.
once we got it all in place, oh my goodness, what a difference. And here we just were, what a difference the IEP was
Uh-huh.
at the end of 11th grade versus
Right. Right.
how many did we have to do in ninth grade? Like 8.
Oh, yeah. What meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting.
And
So,
that's another thing
mhm.
to tell parents is IEPs tend to have to be repeated, and don't hesitate to say we're going to have to circle back and we're going to have to revisit this because we're not done.
Yeah.
They want to be done with you.
Yes. And
They
they
don't
want you to
want,
sign. And they
yeah, and
want you to sign and get it over with.
right. And no
And
matter
how
what,
long did we not sign, Chris?
oh my gosh, it
I
was
think
over.
it was a whole year.
It was a year
Yeah.
because nothing
Because
was
we weren't done.
we weren't done, and we were waiting for assessments, and we were
Yep.
waiting for everything to be put in place.
Yep.
And the other thing is, Valerie has really encouraged this, and I think parents should know to record these meetings. Of course, you have to announce that you're recording.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to make sure that you, as the parent, have your agenda in place. It's not just their agenda. What are your parent concerns?
Right.
And have that announced in advance. This is what the parent wants to talk about. We're going to address these points.
Yeah.
So those are really important skills, in my opinion.
Yes.
And just do not sign anything. I don't care what they say, or what they do, or how they make you feel like you got to sign or we won't do anything. If you don't sign, they can't take anything already in place away.
Right.
They can't.
The last IEP remains in place.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then we recorded things, and I'm glad we did.
Oh, yes. Because why? Why?
Well,
Because, yeah. Let them know why.
we had just this amazing IEP, and we walked out of there going, wow, everything was great. He's going to have a great year next year. And then we got it back, and they said, oh, no, no, no. We just said he'd be done with that. The IEP was an addendum IEP. It was in March. And they said, oh, no, 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 that ends in April. And we said, why in the world would we agree to having something end 2 weeks after the IEP?
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't even get that started.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, they said that, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to go through and listen to this. I think it was a 3-hour IEP.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go find the soundbite that said
that.
to the agreement.
Yes.
And because I had it on audio, it helped us a bit. It helped us
Yes.
quite a bit.
And it also helps to when they forget to write things all together, or they write it incorrectly, and you can go back and you have the evidence to say, this is the conversation, and this was the agreement that was made, and this is what should have been documented in the IEP. So yeah, every IEP should be taped. And it's not an adversarial thing. It's just like that's a formality. That's just what you do. I mean, just think about it, how much information is discussed in an IEP.
Yes.
Parents have the right to record it and go back and listen to it later. Or what if your husband's not there and you want them to listen to it? Then they have to listen to it. And you learn a lot when you listen to the IEP. So doesn't mean that, oh, they're taping because they're going to file for due process on us. No, it's just a parent's right to do that. That's another thing parents are afraid to do, because they say, oh, that's so adversarial when you tape record. No, it's not.
Well, if you've noticed, when we record, they say we're going to record it too. Yeah. And they started recording it as well. It's like, that's just fine. We'll have 2 backups. That's great.
and that's just what the district is supposed to do. So if parents record, then they record as well. So that's just their formality too. Yeah. So, and that's fine. That's fine.
I don't mind.
There's not a problem with that. So, but yeah, I think you're right. I'm glad you made that last point of what you recommend for parents, is that to make sure that you develop your own parent agenda, which you and I have a conversation about a week or 2 prior to the meeting. And you let me know, these are the things that I need to talk about, that I want to have fixed, that I want to have addressed at the meeting. And I develop a parent agenda for us. And also, I include their agenda in there.
And also, what I learned from you is we have the right to request any reports in advance so we can review them before the meeting.
Oh, yes,
Because
absolutely.
what they were doing before I had you is they were handing me reports at the meeting that I had
Right.
never been able to review. They would say, okay, here's the speech assessment, here's the psych assessment,
Right.
here's this assessment. I
Yes.
never got them in advance.
And then you're sitting there at a disadvantage, never seeing this information, trying to digest it as they're going through it very quickly, and then
Hmm.
expect you to make a decision upon that right there and then when you hadn't had a chance to look at it prior to. And that puts the parents at the disadvantage again. So parents have the right to get anything that is going to be disclosed at the meeting. You have the right to have it. But if you don't ask for it, they are going to offer it to you because
Right.
they want you to be at a disadvantage. They want you to be overwhelmed with all this information coming at you, and you're trying
Hmm.
to think of it all and remember it all and do it all, and it's like it's impossible. It's impossible.
It
So
is. And the other thing is what I would recommend if you don't have somebody that knows the law, like, Valerie knows the law, and Valerie knows all the services that the district does offer that they don't disclose.
yeah.
But if you don't know about certain services, if they say, for example, I wish that I had thought to say, your son's reading comprehension is one of his biggest struggles. Okay, is there an assessment and a program for that? Because then they're going to have to tell me. But
Uh-huh.
if I don't ask, they don't even offer it up. But if I say, okay, you
Uh-huh.
keep saying that reading comprehension is one of his challenges. Do you have any programs for that? Do you have
Mhm.
a specialist that does an assessment for reading comprehension?
Yes.
Just ask. Ask
That's
if there's
right.
a program. Ask if there's
Ask.
an assessment. They're going to have to disclose that to you if you
Yes.
ask.
And even go one step further is when they give you the answer, make sure they document it in the notes.
Hmm.
Parent requested if there was a reading assessment and the district said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, there's not a reading assessment." Because then it's documented and there's evidence to say that they refused to give that parent the intervention they were asking for their child. Then they're not, guess what? They're not going to write that down because that would be a lie. So then they're going to give you the right information. They're going to go, "Oh, as a matter of fact, there is." And then you're going to get it. Or, and also to go even a step further than that is anytime a child is behind or has a deficit, they have to address it. That's what the law says. All deficits have to be addressed with either a goal, an accommodation, or an assessment to determine how are they going to address that deficit and bring that child up to grade level. That's what IDA is. That's what special education is. You don't just go year after year after year, child having deficit, and they're not doing anything about it, except for, "Oh, well, we worked on it in a goal, and sorry, they didn't make any progress, so we're going to work on the same goal again." And it goes on for 3 or 4 years. And then they never meet the goal, and they go, "Well, let's go on to a different goal now because they're not that goal they must not be able to do. So we'll try this one now." And then year after year, they go under the radar, going through and not making progress. So that's another good pointer for parents. So, is there any closing remarks you'd like to make, Chris, to parents?
Um, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Um, it does take a village, and there's a village of us out there, and we're just
Yeah.
a Zoom away.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
it's okay to feel overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
because we've all felt that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's your child can succeed
Yes.
and should succeed. You just need to be empowered to know how to just navigate through this system, but you
Right.
don't have to know it all right now.
Right.
It's okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still learning. Every meeting is new, and
Yeah.
as I go forward, I mean, I'm about to enter into the world of higher education with a kiddo with special needs,
Yes.
and it's going to be a whole new learning experience for me. So
Yes.
I'm,
Yes.
finally feel like we've navigated very successfully through high school. We
Uh-huh.
have a whole new adventure ahead of us.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but I really look forward to it because I think he's been empowered with a lot of great skills,
Yes.
thanks to you. But I just want to
And
make sure
he's ready.
parents, yes, I want to make sure parents understand that it's normal to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's normal to feel frustrated. It's normal to feel alone.
It is.
It's normal to feel outnumbered at an IEP.
Yes.
because you are.
Yes. Because
um,
you are.
and 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 it's okay to reach out for help. Don't
Mhm.
feel like you're
Yeah.
you're succumbing to anything. Don't feel that way. You're
Right.
not. You're just reaching out for some knowledge that you don't have, and you're just
Yes.
things will get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
But ask for the help. It's just fine.
Right. And there is so much help out
Yeah.
there. There's, there's advocates, but make sure you get a good advocate.
Mhm.
There's courses. I have my Ultimate IEP course for parents that will teach you everything you need to know to learn how to advocate for your child. There's Rights Law, the website that has, all you have to do is look for the question you have, and you'll probably find the answer in Rights Law. But it is difficult to put all the pieces together. So that's why I created my program, is because I start from step one, and I take you through 5 steps that teaches you from beginning to resolution. This is how you get the resolution when you're in a dispute, and this is how you win the services you need for your child. So it's a whole program, and it's sequential. So, but there is help. So get the help, and yeah, you're who knows, your child could be a success story just like Dylan. So thank you so much, Chris. Thank
Oh,
you
my
for
pleasure.
being here.
Anytime.
And thank you, parents. And we'll see you soon.